I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford podcast. Let's ride.
Hey, Maddy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Charlie. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thanks again for coming on. Where'd you just get back from?
I just got back from a full day in Vegas yesterday. I actually got all my signings and appearances scheduled for one day, so I had one full day yesterday and had some fun out there.
What time do you say you left yesterday morning, then got back last night?
Yep, I left my house at about 3:30 yesterday morning, and my flight flew out of DFW at 7, and I was in Vegas until 5:50. Flew back in at about 11 and got home at midnight or 12:30. So I had a long day yesterday.
Then like knocking a podcast out in the next day, huh?
Yeah, there we go.
Well, hopefully this will be nice and relaxing right there where you can kind of get your wits back. Because
Yeah.
I tell you what, it's one of those things where when you go out there for that long, that many people, I don't know how introverted or extroverted you are, but like for me, it's exhausting. Not in a bad way, but like mentally, it can be at the end of the day. Like I remember falling asleep in the cab or the Uber just because
Yeah.
that many people. It's when you're done with it, it's like, whew, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, being new to this, like new to the sport, new to having fans, it is so surprising to me how many people I see come through that say, I'm a fan, like I really love watching you rope. That is something that I probably won't get used to for a while. And then it's also so cool just to see how many people will line up. Like, for example, I signed for Cinch yesterday and I signed for Bloomer yesterday, where there were a lot of athletes. I mean, the line was always full, and there was always a rodeo fan passing through that, had some unique experience with each of us that they shared with us. It is so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I tell you, I had to change my perspective, like when I would show up for Vegas, because I was so used to showing up to places where people had no idea who I was. So I just get used to that. Well, then
Yeah.
when you get to Vegas, I almost had to tell myself, just like pretend everyone knew who I was. And I didn't mean it arrogantly, but just in the fact that these are rodeo fans, it was a lot different than like when you see fans like in a local rodeo. Like these guys are rodeo fans, so I just like expect everyone that I see that they probably know who you are because they're truly rodeo fans. And I had to almost change my perspective because I just walk with my head down like I would like if I was going to Logandale, Nevada to go through the
Yeah.
crowd to go see what I had drawed.
Yeah.
We're like these guys all are fans, and so I had to kind of change my outlook on how when I showed up that like these guys probably know who everyone here that's competing is because they're fans.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to rope yet in Vegas, and so, a lot of the fans didn't really know that Breakaway was moved to Fort Worth. A good part of them did, but, they were talking to the other cowboys and, like, saying, "Oh, your steer last night was bad." Like, they were picking out specific things about their runs or their rides and talking about it to him. So it's not like they're just clueless fans either, like, they know the stock, they know what's going on as well, and some of them even, talked a little bit more about techniques. And so I think that's cool to see that you have knowledgeable fans coming in. And there's also the people that I think this is so cool too, that they see you with your shirt on and they're like, oh, wow, can I get a picture with you? Like just as you're walking to your booth too. But yeah, Vegas is such a cool time for all of those fans to come in. And even some of them flew in I met people from Ireland yesterday. I met people from Mexico, from Brazil. Like they come from all over.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, and I tell you what, too, you could get caught up too on between the mark out rule and the crossfire. I compare it to talking politics and religion at Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
It's a conversation that go on for hours.
yeah, especially you can get caught up in all the Facebook comments and the Facebook posts of that. But I didn't think about that. I didn't run into any of that or hear any of that conversation yesterday, but I'm sure there was a lot of it going on at Cowboy
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, it's strong, and I think it's good to have those conversations because if it's something that can help the judges out, I think it's healthy, and I think there's times where guys got to listen to his fans. If it's frustrating for them, it's something that is frustrating for the contestants as well. So
Yeah.
I think those
Yeah,
are healthy conversations. But talking about Vegas, you guys as breakaway ropers, you guys are in a tough spot. B Bray said it really good. She's talking about like for the fan, that follows y'all all year long from Fort Worth to Houston to Austin to Logandale. all the way out to California, Napa, Reno, Cheyenne, Pendleton, the Governor's Cup. But then when it comes time the NFR, where'd the breakaway ropers go? For most fans, that's kind of the conversation, when it comes to that. Well,
Mhm.
then now you guys were able to get to at least Vegas, within the last few years, have an NFR in Vegas. But this year is a little bit different in the fact of now there's a virus that showed up, things needed shut down. I think it was the right call. What did you feel like the call was for where the timing of when Vegas was and being able to reschedule it?
Um, well, I really don't think that WPRA or PRCA, they really had a call in South Point shutting it down. If we were able to have it scheduled at South Point as it was planned, I think everything would have gone fine. Us top 15, we take immaculate care of our horses. They're our livelihood and they're, our money makers, especially for this time of year. So we're gonna, always do what's best for them. And so if it would have happened at South Point, I think it would have been fine. But with the circumstances, I think that moving it was the best option. um, if it would have continued to happen in Vegas, just maybe moved to a little later in the week, we wouldn't have been able to get a venue that would have, I feel like that would have adequately showcased us in the breakaway. Wouldn't have had enough seating and all of that. But I am really excited about Cowtown, honestly. It stinks that it's not in Vegas, but I'm sure a lot of people have heard about Cowtown in the stockyards. Like, it's such a cool little arena. There's always tourists in the stockyards, in the Fort Worth stockyards. And so even on the normal weeknight rodeos we call them North Side is usually always sold out, especially on a Saturday night. And so I can't even imagine what the breakaway NFBR is going to do at Cowtown. I mean, the tickets are already, I think, pretty much sold out.
Uh-uh.
Um, so I think it's going to be a good showcase, honestly.
Yeah, talk about go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Like
Yeah.
to try to fill out a Tuesday, Wednesday in Vegas before everyone gets there. You guys are kind of handcuffed on being able to sell something out. Now, middle of the week, that thing sells out easy if it was during the NFR. You
Yeah.
talk about coming here to Texas. To me, this is where breakaway is celebrated, between Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, everything, Arkansas. There's so many ropers in that area. Every roper dad is going to be bringing their young girl to come and watch the best in the world. So I think it's really going to be celebrated here. So I am too. I'm really excited because obviously the goal is to get it in the yellow arena, but
Mhm.
this arena dimensions, it's about as close as it gets. The boxes are the same, the width is the same. I think it's only maybe 10 foot shorter than the NFR, but pretty
Mhm.
much the same arena. So
Mhm.
to be able to rope there, and I heard within an hour and a half, the what I'd seen on Facebook is within an hour and a half, it already sold 3,000 seats. So I'm
Wow.
pretty sure I bet it's got to be sold out because I think standing room only, I think is 3,500, I think, if I remembered right. So, I mean, you
Wow.
guys are going to have a full crowd to go and compete. How exciting is that going to be?
So exciting. And just kind of building off of what you were saying about the original NFBR in South Point, it's not sold out. And I've only made it 1 year so far. I made it last year, and it didn't feel like the NFBR. I hate to say that, but we had a cool intro that, kind of introduced each of us, and we had lights on us. And, of course, the fans that were there were cheering, but it wasn't like a little arena. It wasn't like loud, pumped up. The crowd wasn't, it wasn't full. And so the stockyards, I feel like, is gonna fill all of those gaps. Like, it's gonna be so loud, the lights are gonna be going, you're gonna be pumped up, and you're gonna be riding right by these fans, as you rope. Um, and I think that Northside is going to do a great job of kind of making it feel as close as it could be to the NFR or to the NFR and Thomas and Mack. But something I'm also super excited about is I did have a lot of people that told me like, "Oh, we're excited to come watch you in Vegas," like kind of people that wouldn't usually watch rodeos. But I have had so many more people now that the NFBR was moved to Fort Worth saying they were going to come watch me. Like, my vet, Dr. Dustin, from Lamesa, he's gonna come watch me. My neighbor here, at my house, Scott, he's gonna come watch me. Like, it's drawing in a whole nother crowd of people that maybe South Point wouldn't have brought that are more accessible. The NFBR this year is more accessible to them.
That's going to be cool. What is your take on where the breakaway finals is going to be next year? Is there any talk about that?
No, I haven't heard anything. I did see that they signed a new contract. WPRA and PRCA previously was under a contract that had expired this year. And so I was curious to see where that went, what they're going to do for it next year. I definitely think it does need to go back to Vegas. I mean, I hope that it can be moved to a time where it's a little bit more accessible for people coming in for the finals to come watch, where we can feel the stands a little better. But I hope that with the new contract that a different amount of sponsor money is negotiated, because I think the last one had a cap. So
Yeah, I think you guys were handcuffed, I believe, from what the PRCA sponsors were to where it didn't conflict with those sponsors. So you weren't able to bring in
okay.
new sponsors, if I heard it correctly. This is, allegedly. So I
Mhm.
want to get caught in a crossfire on that. But I think that now, I think you guys are open now to be able to go get sponsors to try to get the money added. Is
Yeah.
kind of a nutshell maybe of what I heard. So I'm hoping I'm correct on that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I even think that with it moving to Fort Worth, it would have had the opportunity to get some more sponsors and sponsor money, but just that contract kind of had their hands tied.
Yeah. So do you think that coming here to Fort Worth, do you think this moves you closer or further away to getting into the yellow arena, which is obviously the $1 million question that every breakaway roper and dad and mom want to know is what
Yeah.
everyone's perspective is on getting into that yellow arena.
Yeah. So with all of the talk of the NFVR being moved, was it going to happen? Was it going to be postponed? Where was it going to go? We had several meetings just amongst us, the top 15, kind of talking about that, like what decision this year would be best for the future of breakaway roping. And I think the the decision we all came to was that we kind of need to be thinking about the future of breakaway. And so we think that it needs to go back to Vegas for sure. But having it at Cowtown and us being able to sell out Cowtown in 2, 3 days, that's gonna do a lot, I think. I mean, you can make the argument that when it was at South Point, the people that were there early were just there early, to set up their booth, and it was the family, filling the stands, like, you can make all those excuses, but if it's standalone in Fort Worth, the people watching are there for the breakaway, and if that's sold out, I mean, how many more fans can we bring to the Thomas and Mack? And you see so much excitement online during this time of year, and so much speculation about breakaway being moved to the Thomas and Mack. And so I like
Support. That's one of the
what's that?
things I like reading the comments when it comes to this because
Oh,
I'm curious what the people are talking about. But your
yeah,
guys' support is huge.
yeah,
There's obviously the conversation here and there, but the support, like I'll get on some of those just to read the comments to see what the feel is for people. And the support y'all have to be in that yellow arena is huge.
yeah, yeah, it really is. It means a lot when you see someone say in a comment that I don't want to watch the concerts, or, shorten this or shorten that, and it makes room for the breakaway. And so you're right, the support does mean everything, and I think that's a huge part of the decision to move it into the Thomas and Mack will be the fan support too.
Yeah, because I think it's tough in the fact of like for a business decision, if you think about probably the NFR, they already sell it out.
Yeah,
And that's what I think is tough in the fact of it'd be cool if it was a bigger venue
yeah,
because then I think they would need those extra tickets. And then I think the breakaway is a no brainer.
yeah,
The excuse of not having enough room, you guys they can make that work. But I think in the fact of, the money's there. We've already heard plenty of people that have offered to sponsor it if
yeah,
they'll put it in the yellow arena. So the money's not the problem. It's just I think I don't know. It's in my opinion, I feel like it's almost going to take somebody on the NFR board or the Las Vegas events board, this daughter's breakaway ropes to where it's
yeah,
like, all right, it's time. Because other than
yeah,
that, it's a decision I think on what's best for the industry. You get some guys in there that like know that this is how many trucks this event buys a year. This is how
Mhm.
many trailers that
Yeah.
this event buys a year, ropes, saddles, hay, feed. To me, you start getting the sponsors starting to get put together in the fact of, hey, look, we're the ones that keep this industry going because if it's not for the sponsors, this industry ain't nowhere. The
Yeah.
sponsors is what's keeping this alive in the Western
Yeah.
industry. You know,
Yeah.
they're the ones buying the TV rights. They're the ones that are signs are all over that arena. So to
Yeah.
me, until the sponsors start saying, hey, look, this is an event. This is a huge event. This is a big part of our industry that supports it.
Yeah.
And I think when those conversations start being had, that those people are wanting, you know, something that's gonna be able to, you know, just like I mean, the amount of girl dads that I seen buying their kids stuff in the classic booth while I was signing autographs, you know,
Yeah.
these are our fans, these are our people, you know, like to kind of watch you girls all year long, but then when it comes to the most major Super Bowl event, then you know, okay, you girls go over here. For the
Yeah.
fans, it's frustrating. For you girls, I know it's frustrating. And the girl dads out there, it's extremely frustrating, you know, and stuff. So you know, I see a little bit of the frustration that everybody has, but until it's almost like we're going to do this for the industry because it's the right thing to do, it's going to be a tough battle, I think.
Yeah. Just talking about, how many of the young girls you see getting into it and, how much of their money goes into sponsors and the industry's pockets. I'm relatively young to the sport of breakaway compared to the, rest of the field. I'm not that far away from like the junior ropings. I went to them growing up. I went to all Chris Neal's, the Patriots. Like if there was a breakaway, I was there for it. And the difference in between 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and now, it is crazy. I mean, I remember when I would go to the 19 and unders, I mean, 50 or 60 or so, and the girls that were there, they were probably just on horses that were raised, they weren't on super special X calf horses or, just kinda something that their parents could make do and get them by with, but now you go to, Joe Beaver's or Chris Neal's ropings, and the 19 and under is sometimes bigger than the open, and every single girl that is there, like, they have a custom saddle, they have, nice rope cans, fully tooled rope cans, fully tooled rope bags. They have a rope bag full of, nice ropes. I mean, like, they are there for rodeo, and now these young girls have the dream, to chase the breakaway as their career when they're older, and so how many more girls is that bringing into the industry? And, how many more,
Well,
like you said, horses, trailers, saddles, how many more of those are they buying?
well, the economic impact that breakaway has is phenomenal. You know, when they start
Yes.
keeping track of numbers, it's going to blow a lot of the people away on what this industry, what the economic impact for this Western industry is for breakaway ropers. You know, you look at all the rodeos from that we talked about, you know, all the way from now this year, Calgary, you know, brought you guys in to the perf and from Houston to the Governor's Cup, all these rodeos have accepted it because they know the economic impact. But then when it comes to
Yeah.
the major one, you know, it's wild that that's the one that's not there. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's such a hole in the industry in the fact of like, you think that what that economic impact does, that sponsors don't speak up and say some things. You say that in one perspective, but then you look at Kimes, talk about stepping up,
Yeah,
you know,
putting their
seeing the
money where
hole in
their
the
mouth is.
industry and seeing that like this isn't right for y'all. And then
Yeah,
just goes and puts on a rope and at the end of the year for y'all that adds the same as the NFR. So, you know, you talk about sponsors speaking up, you know, Kimes is speaking up with action. I think that's pretty cool what they're doing right there for the breakaway industry.
yeah, and I mean, it more than that, or I mean, sponsors don't have to, step up and lend money, even just like word of mouth, spreading the word, talking to rodeo committees spreading it on. It doesn't take much to spread this around. And I mean, what would happen too if it got added into the Thomas and Mack? It probably might get added into the rest of the rodeos and it might become the mainstream at that point too. Like I don't know. I just think the reach of breakaway is very far reaching and it touches a different niche than other events do. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
fast. You know, you know when you look at the demographic, you know how many women support and buy tickets. You know,
Yeah.
it's there's more women that when they look at the demographics on all their rodeos, a lot of the major rodeos, they keep track of that. They want to know what their audience is. So
Yeah.
when one of you girls goes out there and just blitzes 1-1 or a short two, I mean, the crowd erupts every single time.
Yeah.
And it's fast paced. The animal always wins. Every from a rodeo fan to somebody that's just watching that came to a rodeo for the first time from another country. I mean,
Mhm.
it's exciting. It's something to where if you put it in the Thomas and Mack, it would explode.
Yeah. Um, and then I also think it's cool that everyone in different walks of life can do this. Like, you have people that just, graduated high school, graduated college pro rodeoing, but you also have moms out there. And not only is that a cool story, for the fans to see that, a mom is out here rodeoing with her kids, but also the economic impact that being a mom rodeoing brings to these towns that adds breakaway. They bring their kids to the rodeos, they bring their kids out to eat, they take them to do fun activities. I mean, that's just another example of the reach that breakaway can have with the different people that do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And so what are the dates for? I've tried texting Tim Long with Cowtown, and I'm sure he's busy, but I'm trying to find out if there's any tickets available. So if anyone's listening online, they can come.
Mhm.
They can come and watch. But I know it's in Cowtown. The dates are the 22nd, 23rd of December at Cowtown.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep, December
And then what
22nd,
time is the perf start?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. both
Yep,
nights
both days. Hmm.
or both days? Yeah. And so
Hmm.
like it's going to be tough for some of y'all because the Kimes Ranch is just getting over with. So you girls have made the finals. You guys are going to have to book it to get back to Cowtown then from Scottsdale, correct?
Yes, we are. I think it's a 13-hour drive from Scottsdale to where I live in Stephenville, so we're probably gonna have to drive straight back if we make the finals. We run the cabs through the day before the finals at 6 p.m., so we have got to be there for that. And as far as I know, we're still roping the same calves as we were supposed to rope in Vegas. The stock contractor decided that he would take them to Texas, and so I'm kind of curious to see what the calves are going to be too, because last year at the finals, it was the same stock contractor, and they were the calf roping calves from Reno, and so they definitely had time to grow. And they were pretty big last year, and so I'm kind of curious what these extra couple weeks is going to do for them too.
Yeah. How hard is this for some of the girls? Is there any kind of frustration on some of the girls in the fact of like how close it runs into Christmas and family and things like that? Has that been hard on some of the girls a little bit?
Yeah, especially some of the moms, that's tough. You want to be at home with your kids getting ready for Christmas and getting ready for Santa to bring them presents. And so I just think they're going to try to hustle on home. And I also do feel bad for the first timers, for the rookies. It's when you make the NFR, you think Vegas, you
Yeah.
think, lights, casinos. And so it does kind of stink that the first timers are going to Fort Worth, but I mean, this is also a page in the history books of rodeo
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. This could be the only time that ever is there. So it might be one of those history book moments too, like when we were all in Arlington in 2020.
Yeah.
That was kind of a cool feel in the fact of, we're one of 15 guys that have ever roped at the
Yeah.
NFR in that building. So that part's kind of cool for sure.
Y
But I do
yeah.
also, the first timers dream of Vegas. It is definitely something that's a dream. Um, what do you think the contract is going to be like and the fact of what the PRCA WPRA is? Because Bibre has said it really good. She compares to the PRCA and the WPRA as basically a divorced couple that are living in separate homes. And the
I
ones that get the brute of it is the kids, which would basically be the contestants. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good analogy because it seems like since the lawsuit from the WPRA and the PRCA a long time ago, there's always been a disconnect between the two where it's been having a hard time getting on the same page. Does a
Yeah.
guy fear that is that what may be holding some of the progress back, or what's kind of the feel out there in the breakaway world on being able to get to where you guys are a part of the team, I guess you'd say?
Yeah. Uh, I think your analogy or Vibre's analogy, that's a light way to put it. But I'm gonna be honest, I stay out of a lot of the politics. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but just with my outside view looking in, I feel like if the right person wanted the breakaway to be at the same level as everything else, it would be there. And so maybe we're just waiting for that right person to come along, that right relationship to come along. But in my view, I think that PRCA does need to be like it has to be involved. It has to have a contract for Breakaway to continue to flourish, and for Breakaway to have the chance to get into the Thomas and Mack and get the showcase it deserves. Um, but I hope that the renegotiation of the contract, with that comes a renegotiation of, like, we'll be able to have more sponsors and more sponsor money. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know that the old contract, kind of limited that in some way or the other.
Well, I'm hopeful. I will say that. I'm hopeful that one day that gets there, and I think it will. I really do. I don't know if it's anytime soon, because there's definitely no talk of it, but
Yeah,
I'm hopeful, and I think it will because what you guys are doing and what you guys are the impact and how good you girls have gotten to where you rope and as exciting as it is, I think it's a matter of time. It's just I don't think anyone knows when that time is, so that's the
it's fine.
frustration part of it. But I'm hopeful it gets there for
Yeah,
sure. So man,
yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit about your story. Coming from Hope, New Mexico. I talked with Garrett for a little while this morning, and him and I become good buds. We have a Bible study group that we have over there every week at the Braes, and so I've become good friends with him. We're going hunting next month, so
Oh, that's news
it's
to me.
yeah, it's been fun getting to know him. And but talking about you said coming from Hope, New Mexico, said you had to avoid a lot of rattlesnakes at that ranch where you grew up.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I grew up in the Wild West compared to where I am now. Yeah, so my family used to own a ranch, in Hope, New Mexico. It's in southeast New Mexico, and, I grew up in the middle of nowhere out there in Hope. I had a great childhood there. We ran about 150 head of cattle, and so that kind of took up a lot of my time growing up. It was just ranching, rodeo, and school pretty much. I lived 45 minutes away from school growing up, and so I kind of made a choice early on to chase rodeo, and that was pretty much me out there. The weekends we rodeoed, and during the school nights we got home just in time to rope, and also did all of our cattle work, kind of squeezed that in as well.
When you're talking about 150 cattle, was that sections that you guys had there, or was it acres? Because I would imagine New Mexico, that's going to take quite a bit of land
Yes.
to provide that many cattle.
Yeah, sections for sure. The country I grew up in, it was pretty dry. Like, it was on and off years. If you got rain, it was the best country you could have growing up. There was so much protein in the grass, but if it didn't rain, which most of the time it didn't rain, you were always feeding cattle, even into the summers in the fall.
So, what was the arena like? Because Garrett told me a little bit about your guys' roping arena there. It sounded like horses could learn how to use their feet correctly and learn how to avoid a lot of obstacles in your arena.
Yeah, I grew up in a rock pit pretty much. Like, even my horse's pins, like, I don't know how my horses were sound growing up, but yeah, the arena always had rocks in it. I remember, when I was learning to rope, practicing, and got a little bit more serious about it, my parents had 5-gallon buckets out at the rope and shoots, and every calf I missed was one 5-gallon bucket of rocks picked up. And so that was a little bit incentive for me right there. But as many rocks as I picked up, they'd still come up.
They'll still come up, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The two horses, my two main horses that I ride now, Yeller and Whopper, I think their stories are really cool because especially my yellow horse, we get our horses from the same guy. His name is Will Connor. He just puts a great handle on them. they have all started as ranch horses, and, we'd use them a lot out there in Hope. But Yeller and Whopper, I both got them as 3, 4-year-olds, and we ranched on them for a while and then took them to the arena, started trailing calves on them, and just kind of slowly made them into what they are now. My dad helped me make them. My dad pretty much made my yellow horse, and then after that, he helped me make the rest of my horses coming along. But my yellow horse, I have been roping on him since I was a 7th grader. I remember the very first rodeo that I took him to was my very first 7th grade junior high rodeo in Alamogordo, New Mexico. And I think it's just so cool to me, and it's so special to me that that yellow horse has been there for me through every step of rodeo. And at 18, he still continues to win and help me make, the NFR breakaway.
My new online course, The Basics of Horsemanship for Roping, is now available. This course takes everything we've covered from the basics of roping and puts it into action. You'll learn how to properly use your left hand and feet to create clear cues for your horse and making sure your tack fits your horse correctly. There will be detailed live run breakdowns and real jackpot scenarios. Head over to charlycrawford.training, click under the course tab, and sign up today. If you haven't picked up the basics of roping yet, check out the Basics Bundle. You'll save 20% and get both courses to help take your roping and your horsemanship to the next level.
Now, did your dad and that horse get along very well?
No. When he was a 3-year-old, my dad gave me Yeller because Yeller tried to buck him off on a rattlesnake. He was helping a neighbor gather cattle, and rattlesnake started rattling, and Yeller went to bucking. And I remember my dad saying, he was holding off the side of the saddle on Yeller, and he got home and he had this huge bruise down his leg from Yeller. And after that, Yeller was mine. I don't think my dad ever stepped foot on him again. And
That's a,
um,
that's
his
a
name is Pete
nightmare.
Lucy.
Thinking about riding a bucking horse in the middle of a bunch of rattlesnakes
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think I touched on the rattlesnake story enough. Like my house, sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent. This is a long story. So we live in the desert, kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's no other houses around. And we have a lot of rocks, as I've kind of explained through the arena story. And we have these kind of bluffs near our house. And every time I had a friend over, like if a high school rodeo would be in Artesia, we'd get in the ranch truck and we'd load up. We'd load up with our guns and go shoot rabbits. And we'd also take shotguns and we'd go to these bluffs because there were rattlesnake dens in these bluffs. And so this is a funny story. I remember one time I took Shad Mayfield. He used to high school rodeo in New Mexico. I took Shad out, and I don't know what we were doing. We were walking on foot in these cliffs, like in the middle of the snake den, like looking for rattlesnakes. And Shad was in front of me, and we saw probably the biggest rattlesnake we've ever seen, like feet from Shad Mayfield. So I could have got Shad Mayfield snake bit, and he maybe could have not cap roped. But anyways, where I was going with this story. So our house is between these cliffs, and so the snakes basically saw our house as a McDonald's. Like they saw all this hay, all this mice was around the hay, and so they like to hang out at our house. And so I can't tell you the amount of times that I stepped out on the front porch over a rattlesnake. We had a rattlesnake on our house one time. We were having some remodeling done, and I was in the dining room doing homework, and I heard some rattling going on. We had some laundry going, and I walked over because I thought the dryer was just rattling, and there's a rattlesnake right there in the house. So, like I said, Wild West.
That's no kidding.
Yeah.
That's gonna give so many listeners nightmares right there. That's
It,
straight
it
up
makes
cowgirl stuff there.
it makes me nervous when I go home because we still have the ranch house I grew up in. And now I have my, you know, horses with money to their names now. And so I go with a flashlight when I go home and I like check through the pins, make sure there's no rattlesnakes waiting anywhere for them.
Has anyone gotten bit out there?
Not my family. I mean, I've heard stories of neighbors getting bit. Uh, the one of the most interesting stories I heard of a snake bite once was one of our neighbors had an oil field worker come in that had killed a rattlesnake, and then he went to pick it up, like kind of close to its head. And rattlesnakes can still bite after they die. They have that reflex.
Yeah.
And so one of the oil field guys got bit picking up a snake after it had died. But Garrett, when we first started dating, I told him when he come to the house, like, you got to be careful. You got to watch where you step. And Garrett was deathly afraid of rattlesnakes, like did not want to go near one. But I told him, I was like, the rattlesnakes at our house are nice. And he was like, what do you mean? There's no nice rattlesnake. And I was like, you just got to come out to the house and see, like, you can get near one and they rattle at you, but we've never been bit.
Yeah, that'll definitely test the boy that you're dating right there to see if he's man enough to come date, if he's willing to walk through rattlesnakes right there to come and
Walk
hang
through,
out with you.
yeah, walk through rattlesnakes for me.
That's right. That's right. That's a man there. What he was talking to about, you made a lot of your own horses, or if not all of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've made all of my own horses. When I was in junior high, my parents tried buying me a couple horses and just never fit. I like my family, my mom and dad, they were no, born horse people growing up. They just always had horses around. Growing up on or my mom growing up on a ranch, she always had horses around. And my dad, he didn't grow up on a ranch, but he did grow up around roping, so he just kind of knew his way around a horse. But I think when they got married and got the ranch and got the cattle, they started taking, horsemanship more seriously. And I remember my dad had a whole box of Clinton Anderson tapes, the VCR tapes, and so I can't even watch them anymore. But I guess they just sat down and started taking their horsemanship seriously. And my dad bought ranch horses and started wanting to make them into breakaway horses for me. And so I guess we just kind of took that step on our own, and I always got along with the horses my parents made more than I did other horses. And so I've kind of transferred that into my professional life now. I'm still roping on the horses that I did in high school, but now I'm really thinking about lining up the next horses and also looking into what's on their papers, like what can I have on their papers for them to be a prime prospect. But yeah, I always just got along with making my own horses, and I feel like they fit me inside and out, knowing that I train them and they also know me inside and out as well as their rider.
How much do you feel that being out there on the ranch and using them has helped with what they're able to do in the arena?
A lot. Like I said, all of my horses I've gotten from the same guy, Will Connor. He used them as ranch horses. Obviously after I moved to Stephenville, I couldn't, keep ranching on the horses that I did. So we keep them with Will Connor for a year or two, and he ranches on them. And I just think that gives them a sound mind. Like, they learn to deal with pressure at an early age. And so when you bring them into the arena, then they're ready for it. Like, it isn't going to blow their mind up. And then I also feel like especially ranching on them in the country that I grew up in, it makes them so sound. Like, they learn where to put their feet. They learn how to take care of themselves. And especially in my instance with growing up in such rough country, my horses, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself, but they have been sound as anything. I've never had one of my good horses get hurt.
I was thinking about that as Garrett and I were talking about, I've always thought that too. It'd be a great documentary is if you take the same breed of horse and you put the same timeline and one went to the ranch, the other one went to the show barn.
Hmm.
Both got trained the same, but due to the fact that when one got trained, one went to the stall and the other one went outside to go work, sorting cattle, gathering cattle, branding, all that, and see what their mind feels like at a certain age when they start rodeoing compared to the other. What
Yeah.
soundness issues, I think there is something too in the fact of getting used and being a horse. And also too is, I was thinking about it this morning too, thinking about the difference between just in the team roping, the two Canadian headers. You got Colton Schmidt that's riding a show horse of Ren Richard's. That's
Hmm.
awesome.
Hmm.
Completely, oh my gosh, looks amazing in there. And then
He
you
is.
got Dawson Graham's borderline bronc horse that's got white in his eyes that'll paw you if
Yeah.
you don't put the breast collar on correctly, love you if you try to shoe it. And both of them are dominating on two completely different type of yellow horses, and you're wondering,
Yeah.
that bronky sucker Dawson's on will probably last till he's 22. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
something to just that mentality of being tough enough to endure those hard conditions as opposed to some of them. And I'm not saying that the yellow that Colton's on may not last till 22 also, but it'd just be an interesting perspective of one learns how to be a little bit tougher than one that's a little bit pampered because you're trying to keep them from getting hurt so you can
Yeah.
continue to keep showing them. But I think it's always an interesting perspective because, Jackie, she doesn't hardly rope without having just the right amount of water on the arena. You're talking about removing borderline boulders from your arena so you can break away. I mean, not even the same, but yet yours are just as sound as can be.
Yeah. I remember also when I went to school at first in Huntsville, I could not keep a horse sound. Like I went from the dry desert to, gosh, what, 80% humidity. It was so humid in Huntsville. I could not keep them sound. And so the environment that they grew up in was different for their feet as well. Like just hardened their feet, got their feet tough. But what you're talking about with the environment that they grew up in and how it impacts them. I'm really curious about that as well. Like I said, I've been trying to line up my next horses and be training the up and comers. And I've been starting to think like, should I maybe branch into, getting a X cutter, X reiner, whatever. But then I also think about what they've been exposed to and how would training be different on a roping horse versus, a reject as well. Like how do they handle different stages of training? So yeah, that's such a good point. I would be curious for someone to actually document the difference in that.
Jackie, she brought up a good point the other day when she was talking about she's looking for 3-year-olds to get ready for their 4-year-old fraternity years and stuff. And, they talked about like some of the breeding, her and Cheyenne, like Cheyenne especially, like she's so good with the breeding and
Hmm.
knowing what horse has done what and, what their natural instincts are with their shoulders, their butt, how they stop and how they use their feet. And also too, they explained it really good on the fact of like, once those 3-year-olds go through either a little bit of cutting and some cow horse and maybe a little bit of reining, running one off the fence as well is they just been kind of like exposed to it, but they hadn't done it so much that like they're hard about it, if that makes sense. And I was like, man, that would be such a good way to get one started as that 3-year-old. They learn how to
Hmm.
use their feet, they learn how to work a cow, they're broke, but then, man, then what would 6 months do to get them outside,
Yeah.
when they go branding season in March, and get outside and go be a horse, how much that would probably mature their mind on learning how to just all of a sudden they get kicked out in their pasture that they've never seen this much room, and
Yeah.
learn how to be a horse and stuff. And so I think that is something that's interesting when you talk about that, because I think that is how the horse was designed to be anyway,
Yeah.
to be a using horse. And then I think that's where they learn how to get tougher, in my opinion, as well. But
Yeah, I say all of that about them being ranch horses, they're tough, blah, 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 but now that especially my old ones that I've been rodeoing on, now that I see how important to me they are babied. Like, when I take them home, I absolutely am not going to rope another calf in that hard arena on them. I'll still ride them outside in the soft parts, but gosh, they're so babied and they are so special to me now. I remember when I moved to Stephenville, I saw all of the things like the MyoPulse, the therapies like MyoPulse, MagnaWave, and then also saw horse dentistry and chiropractic. I never did that on any of my horses growing up. Like they just got injected if they started showing that they were sore and that was it. And when I moved here, I was like, "Oh, that stuff is witchcraft. Like a horse don't need that." Blah blah blah. Like I was such a hard head about it. But now my horses, they're regular on everything. They get chiropractic, they get MyoPulse, they get everything. So I've kind of gone back on my ways a little bit.
that's funny.
Yeah.
What about your style? How did you learn your style? Did your dad rope? Was there people that you studied? How did you study it back then? Because it was before the breakaway was kind of on the Cowboy channel. So, how did you get your style? And then who was some of the girls that you tried to study and watch to develop your style?
Yeah, so my dad team roped growing up. He headed, but his main deal was healing. And my dad died. He died in 2017, and
How
he
old were
got
you
in a
then?
what's that?
How old were you then?
Uh, I was 16.
16.
Um, that was a pretty tough time in my life, but just with my style, my dad was a pretty good healer, but he got in a roping accident. I think it was between 2003 and 2005. Before the accident, like he pro rodeoed a little bit, jackpotted a lot. But after his accident, he couldn't raise his arm, his roping arm above here. If he did swing a rope, it was just like sidearm like that. But after his roping accident, I feel like he really this is just kind of me like looking back and speculating, but he really channeled all that he knew roping into me. Like he wanted to kind of live that through me. But he taught me to head first. I think I started heading probably when I was between like 10 and 12. And so I feel like my breakaway style came from him teaching me to head. Like you watch the 80s team ropers and they, like use a lot of elbow and kind of I call it pump jack. And so I wish I could show you videos from when I first started to rope. I was like a chicken wing roping. Um, but yeah, he kind of taught me to breakaway rope based on that 80s style. And I growing up like junior high and high school, my dad was my only source of help. Like we would always watch the NFR together, like slow down runs, watch Trevor Brazil a lot, Joe Beaver, watch some of his old runs a lot. And I feel like we just took little bits and pieces from everything. Like mostly I remember learning a lot about throwing a rope. My dad even had me take softball lessons where like I guess to get the power of a throw, like he took me softball lessons to try to get that instilled into me. But yeah, we took bits and pieces out of everybody's style and kind of integrated into our own to make it work.
Garrett said that you're one of the few people that still use the classic golds to head with.
Yeah. I don't head anymore. I miss heading. I headed all in high school and junior high, but yeah, classic golds, they were the bomb
They were
to
the
me.
yeah.
And I remember like before I moved to Texas, obviously, there was only one store in New Mexico that had them. And so I had to go buy the store out. It was Roswell Livestock in Roswell, New Mexico. I had to go buy them out of the classic golds and then have to wait a month or so and then go buy them out of the next round. I still have a few sitting in the closet here. And every now and then, Peyton and Wyatt Bray, they'll come over. And the golds, they've been marinating, like they feel really good. And so every time they come over, they got to swing the golds.
Funny. So what's the breakaway of choice? What do you use? Breakaway. What's the size and what? And then also, how long do you cut yours?
I use rattlers. I use Spitfires. Before I really got into the breakaway, gosh, I think I used king ropes, and I just like never got along with the rope good until I started using rattlers. But I like to use the 50s and 60s Spitfires. I like to use the 50s because I feel like they're a little bit lighter than the 60s. Well, they are lighter than the 60s, but I feel like with my style, I can get a curl to really stand up with a 50, but also keep the loop open and also have it can handle the power when I throw a rope. And I like to use the 60s when we're roping bigger calves or I feel like I need to reach because the 60s I feel like can really hold up if I put a lot of power into reaching, which I feel like is a part of my
Stay
style.
open better? Is that kind of what you
Yeah.
mean? Like for bigger heads, bigger calves, they'll stay open better?
Yeah, it stays open better. If I could, I would use 60s all year round. But if I rope a small calf with a 60, I can't get enough curl to stand up to not curl a tail or curl a leg. But the Spitfires, they have so much body and they stay open so well. I love that about them. I've never felt a rope like that can stay open but keep their body. Um, the other two rattler ropes, the Viper, I use that one a little bit. I like to use it in the summer. I feel like it really holds its shape in the summer, but that one, the difference between that one and the Spitfire to me, I feel like is the Spitfire just really holds its body so well. And not that the Viper doesn't, but just with like my style of like putting a lot of power behind a throw, I think the Spitfire is so hard to beat. Um, And I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you how much I cut off of a rope. I just like have this old rope that I keep with me. I do like to rope with a shorter rope in the winters in the buildings, and like to use a longer rope in the summer, especially when I know that I'm going to be reaching.
I was wondering if there was a different gauge for when your shot's going to be closer to when it's further out there, because that is kind of your difference between your winter and your summer.
Yeah. You also can't count out having a long rope in the winter buildings either because you might hit the line and be a little late and use your rope to make up,
Yeah.
make up what you're late for. So I don't like to cut them too short. And I also hate feeling constricted, between the coils and your loop
And
as
you
well.
said every once in a while you'll have a rope that might feel a little bit different when it's cooler and when it's hotter.
Honestly, with the Spitfires, I don't. I keep them in the same rope bag, don't really sort them, and the Spitfires are so consistent to me, that they don't change their feel. But the Vipers, yes, the Vipers do feel completely different in the winter than they do the summer. I think for me, they're a little bit more limber in the winter than they are the summer.
Well, so when you started breakaway roping as a young girl and growing up, when did it feel like that was the passion? When did it feel like, okay, this is where I'm going to put my eggs in the basket? And did you go to college? When was it to where it's like, all right, I'm going to go down the road? Kind of talk a little bit about when it was that you're like, all right, I'm committed, I'm in, and then also when did you feel like, all right, now let's go up and down the road and see what it's like.
Yeah, I have a different story from a lot of people on that. Roping was always my passion in junior high and high school. Of course, I didn't play any sports because I roped. And I went to college on a full ride scholarship to Sam Houston State University at first, roping, and continued to rope throughout college. I transferred to Tarleton my second year of college and finished out my undergrad there with a degree in geoscience. And at that time, when I graduated Tarleton, breakaway roping was in the pro rodeos, and I was entering and going just when my schedule would allow. School was always my number one priority over roping. My education was my most important priority over roping. So when I graduated from Tarleton, yes, breakaway was in the pro rodeos, but I didn't think it was at a stage where I should commit to it. And so I wanted to further my education. I went and got my master's at Texas Tech University, also in geoscience. Um, and while I was doing my master's at Texas Tech is when breakaway really started blowing up. Like, equal money is being added. Breakaway is going to Houston, breakaway is going to Calgary. And I got my foot in the door my first year at Texas Tech University, where I made the NFR Open by winning my circuit finals the previous year. I had just kind of circuit rodeoed, and I was really good at it because I was going to all the circuit rodeos when everybody else wasn't. So I won my circuit, got my foot in the door at the NFR Open. And that year, 2023, my first year of grad school, was the year that I won the NFR Open, which qualified me to the cinch playoffs in Puyallup, and I won Puyallup, and that was the first year they had the Governor's Cup, and that qualified me as well to the Governor's Cup. And I think I won a little over 10,000 there, but I had barely rodeoed. I was working on my master's. I was doing a thesis. I was teaching as part of my degree requirements. And rodeo, it was still on the back burner at that point because I was committed to finishing my education. And I even had done an internship my first year of grad school as well with the oil company. I was going to graduate and I was still going to get a job in the oil field as a petroleum geologist. Um, and my second year of grad school it kind of calmed down a little later in the year. I finished my thesis, I defended my thesis. Um, but that was the year that I got to go all summer. Last year was the year that I got to fully commit. I went to everything that I wanted to. I got to rodeo all summer, and more so than just the winning and being able to make money with my rope, I really fell in love with the game. Like, I loved it. I loved being out there. I don't in the moment, I did not like the lows, but when I look back on it, I love the highs and lows. Like, I just fell in love with everything about the sport. And so I feel like last year is really the first year that I fully committed to it and fully realized that this is my passion.
Well,
in
I know
life.
it stuck out to me and it stuck out to Jackie too, because when she came back from that summer when you were out there, she's like, "You got to check out this Maddie. Like this girl's gamer." Went winter circuit, or win the finals of the circuit, then goes to the NFR Open, wins that, goes to Puyallup, wins that, like, and then almost made the NFR in like not very many rodeos. I don't even know if you would have made the NFR if you had enough rodeos to even go. Like that's how little you went. Is that story correct?
Yeah, I think I was less than 10,000 out of making the finals that year. I think I ended up like 20th or so in the world, and I only had, I want to say, between 20 and 23 rodeos, and the minimum count was 25. So
That's
that would have been, I didn't make enough money that I would have made the finals, but that would have been such a cool story if I did.
Well, why there's even a count is beyond me, because if you're game enough to do it, that's a cooler story. All
Yeah,
that does is just allow people that maybe are going to college or have a career, that if they hit at the right places, have a chance. I think
yeah,
and that's what Jackie's like, man, you give this girl a full year, it's going to be lights out. And then now this is your second consecutive NFR. Is that correct?
yes. And with that, honestly, comes a new pressure and a new struggle because when I was still in school, rodeo was my escape and roping was my escape. It was just fun. There was nothing else about it. Like, if I won or lost, it didn't matter because I was doing what I loved and I wasn't writing a thesis. Um, but now this is my job, and I feel like I have to come at it with a new mindset because part of me wants to think like, "Oh, every miss is bad, like, every miss is money lost, you have to be perfect." But that's, as well as me, that is not rodeo at all.
There's such a mindset to be able to miss one and find out what happened, fix it if there's anything to fix, and then move on to the next one. It's so
Yeah,
hard, it feels like, and it's such a learned skill. It's not natural. I don't think it's very few people it's natural for, is to be able to not let that one dwell where then it affects the next run. That's
yeah,
very, very common, because as a perfectionist mindset, you're not going to be perfect. That's where some people have so much heck, is you're going to have to get off perfection. It's not going to be, no quarterback throws 4 touchdowns at every game. No, Michael Jordan never just always just dominated every single game. It was close, but not every one. Driggers, you're seeing it where it's all year long. Those guys, it's that way. That's just a part of the game. And it's funny too, because when you're talking about when you come and enjoy it, how easy it is, and then when you kind of make that shift, it's like, okay, now I'm going to do this for a living. Talk a little bit about that, because it's an important one too. Because I talked with Andrew Ward, and he's like, man, I've got to make sure that I'm still tweaking on things where I'm growing and still making sure I'm evolving, but then also making sure that the enjoyment of it is still there. Because if I don't enjoy it, I don't want to keep doing it. So talk a little bit about that battle when you're kind of starting, okay, now I'm going to do this for a living.
yeah. I feel like I really walk a fine line of over critiquing myself, but also critiquing myself to like what needs to be done. Like when I miss a calf, I automatically want to resort to what did I do wrong? What can I do next time to be better? And even if I do, like if I catch a calf, but maybe I'm just like I'm a few tenths out of placing, I still want to be hard on myself and look at every single facet of the run and be like, what can I do better? But I feel like rodeo is there's so many variables that you cannot be perfect 70% of the time. Like you just kind of make do with what you have. And so kind of my transition from to doing this full time is a lot of mental work, like a lot of building confidence in my foundation and my principles and having confidence in myself going to the rodeos, whether, that's being able to be home and practicing and going to the winter rodeos, or that's out in the summer, like just being able to practice on the dummy, go back to my foundation, go back to like my individual principles and make sure that they're all checking the boxes. And I mean, I feel like confidence is my biggest game because I know that I have the physical ability to rope a calf and I have done it before. I have the horsepower. I just need that last variable, my mindset to be strong. And so mindset is number one, the biggest thing that I've been working on since I started doing this professionally. And um, I kind of struggle, like, when I'm home in the winter, it feels like I'm not working, you know? I used to when I was in school, I'd be writing papers, I'd be at school, like, I was that was my job, but now that rodeo's my job, I kind of try to, like, structure my day, like, I start out with a morning workout that is designed to strengthen and stabilize my shoulder and my core, and I have to remind myself that throughout the day when I'm practicing, when I'm riding young horses, like, this isn't just fun, this is my job, and so when I'm practicing, I try to practice with a purpose. Like, I sometimes have trouble just practicing mindlessly. Like, I back in the box, I'm not thinking about anything. And here lately, especially preparing for the finals, I practice with a goal in mind, like to be working on something that day. So, I mean, just mental, like confidence, and then making things purposeful throughout my day to day life. I feel like that's big things for me.
When you're talking about working on the mental part of it, like what aspects are you working on? Because like for me, my biggest one was I had to learn how to recreate how I talk to myself. And what I mean by that, like everything that I was taught was a don't. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Like for my dad, he was just trying to keep me alive. Charlie, don't stick your finger in the light socket. Charlie, don't walk behind this horse. Everything was a don't. Well, then the hard part for me was then I carried that same mindset in the box. So if I was high team back and all I had to do is catch, I'd be saying, all right, don't screw up. Don't mess up. Don't split the horns. Well, what I started finding out later was that what I was saying, the mind doesn't always hear don't. It's kind of like when they say don't see a pink elephant. Well, it's hard right there not to see a pink elephant. Or they say don't see a red barn, and then a red barn shows up. So sometimes the mind doesn't hear don't. So when I would say don't split the horns, sometimes I could still see myself splitting the horns, and then I split the horns. I'm like, I'm so dumb, I mean, I told myself not to, so
Yeah.
for me, it was learning how to tell myself what to do.
Yeah.
Like that was my biggest one. I had to recreate kind of how I thought about certain things. And another thing I had to start figuring out is like once I started finding out like how to think, then I had to start thinking about, okay, I've been telling myself what not to do for so long. Now I've got to tell myself what to do. So it made me almost have to rethink. One of the best movies I ever watched, I love it, is 7 Days in Utopia. It's a great biblical movie. It's golf, but it's got Robert Duvall on it, so you can't go wrong. But it was about golf. And he gets this
Mhm.
kid out there and he asks the kid why he holds his club like he does. Like, I don't know, this feels good. He's like, well, that's the wrong answer. Like, you need to know what you do and why you do it. So he told that kid to go write down everything that he does and why he does it. And his
Mhm.
his answer to that was, he said, any side comment could get you off your game in golf. One side comment from the peanut gallery could get you questioning how you do things. So he said what
Yeah.
his biggest deal was conviction. So when I watched that, I started writing down all the moving parts of the run, from the back
Mhm.
box to where my lane was, to where position was. I would write it all down. And what that helped me do was, for me, it helped recreate what I was focused on. I was
Mhm.
focusing on the things that I could control, where I never knew how many times I was focusing on things that were completely out of my control. Like I'd be way off over here and there. And I was like, once I kind of focused on what to do, man, it really eliminated a lot of the things that were out of my control, the things I didn't even need. And that
Yeah.
one helped me probably the most, was like once I found out where everything was, then there's a really good book I love called With Winning in Mind. It was an
Mhm.
Olympic shooter by Lanny Basham. And he
Mhm.
would talk about the preload, and he would talk about the shot that he would like visually focus on for like 20, for, I don't know, maybe 20 reps or something like that. And he'd do it probably 5-10 minutes before he competed. So he said when he would focus on that shot, so basically like for you, you're focusing on your run, when you bring your first swing up, when you're trying to find that shot where the money is, like you're focusing on that run. What he said, it almost develops your muscle memory. So when you walk in the box, it almost feels like you just got off straight from a practice session right to the arena. Because, when you think about a lot of times when you go to, say, San Antone, you're coming in cold. You ain't roped a calf in 24 hours,
Yeah.
especially if you were up the night before. So you're coming in cold. So what he was talking about was like being mentally prepared. So when you got there, you almost felt like you had been roping. So then when you nodded, muscle memory kind of took over. Because that's what
Yeah.
things that I watched, like with your style looks like it'd be hard to like emulate with somebody else's style because it was a learned style that you developed. But the one thing that I feel like watching you rope is you've got the hard part down. Your timing of when you hit the start every single time, the shot that you create every single time, the timing of when you brought your first swing up to where when you're able to throw it for the money's won. That's the hard part. That's the stuff that so many girls can rope good, but have a hard time finding the shot for money. The shot
Yeah.
for money is the hard part. When you get that down, then it's just throwing enough loops so when you're there, you know how to make it catch. But that's one of the things that I thought watching you rope was like, you've done such a good job of having that part down. But what's kind of got on a rant right there, but
You
what
said a lot of good stuff right there.
what's some
I'm
of
gonna
the
have to go
stuff
listen.
though that when you're talking about the mental game, what is it that you felt like you're working on?
Yeah, so like I was telling you, when roping was so easy, I didn't even think about it. Like, there were still the misses back then, but I just didn't think of them because I was, doing something else and rodeo wasn't super important to me. And so when I look back at that time when rodeoing was so easy for me, I feel like I just didn't think about it as much as I do now. Like, I'm a very analytical, like, think about everything. Mind is going a million miles an hour all the time. But back then I just wasn't thinking about it. And so when I started doing this for a living and started really focusing on it, then my mind would go a million miles an hour and I would automatically go to the bad. Like, oh, I did this. Oh, if I could have done this, I would have been so much faster. Oh, my horse did this. And so when I first started rodeoing, like last year, first part of last year, I would just focus and fixate on the bad and not have confidence in myself. Like, I have been roping for so long, and I've been roping against, all of the tough girls for so long because I grew up going to ropings with them, but I would still second guess myself and be like, "Oh, I don't think I have what it takes." Even at the beginning of this year, after I had made the NFBR, I was like, "I hope it wasn't just a fluke that I made the NFBR my first time rodeoing. I hope I just didn't rope good that year." Like, I'm so bad about talking negatively to myself and not having confidence in myself. And so I feel like my biggest thing is just having confidence. And like I said, my mind was racing a million miles an hour, and so I tried to slow down my mind, like practicing, having intentional practice rather than like after a run, been thinking about all of the bad things that went wrong or all of the things that I thought had went wrong. I would focus on one thing, like the most important thing that I thought that I needed to work on. Like, for example, my practice at home when I got home this summer, I made a bad habit of like really slowing my swing down, trying to get in time with my horse, and coming with that, my tip also went up. And so one of the things I would be super intentional about practicing, I would be riding in the box thinking of my tip needs to be down. I need to be pointing my tip at the shoulder. And I even like went to the level I'd be repeating that to myself riding in the box and practicing just so I know I wouldn't forget it. And so I build my confidence on each of those when I feel like I had conquered my tip was good for several practices, then I'd move on to something else, like move on to my throw, move on to like completing my throw. And so I would just tackle each of those one by one where I felt like I built confidence on each of them. And then, I mean, obviously, you can't do that when you're out rodeoing during the summer. You can't go home and, practice each of these principles. And so I kind of turned to visualization then. um, I rope the dummy a lot when I'm home, but I rope the dummy so much when I'm out rodeoing, and I try to visualize my runs that are coming up, like before Ellensburg, I would picture some bigger Coriolis like we rope at Ellensburg. I would picture like I would try to see the start as well as I could and kind of like visualize myself riding up, visualize my tip being pointed down, visualize like my throw being completed, like just try to visualize every single part of my run. And then, right before I ride in the box at Ellensburg, I would be thinking, like, kind of making a short phrase and repeating what I need to be working on for that run. Say I drew like a loper, I would say score, 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 like right up into the moment I nod in my head. Or if I drew a low-headed calf, I would be like tip, 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 tip. Like just try to visualize, repeat that in my head, and then I'd also be a few before I run, I'd also be visualizing the run I want to make. And so I just feel like visualization was a huge deal for me, where it built my confidence before I made that run, before where when I make that run, I've already done it in my head so many times and on the dummy. And then also learning to not react negatively if the run did go bad. I would try to pick out some positive things and write them down, what I did on that run, and then maybe pick out the negative thing and work on that on the dummy, you know? Just building confidence was my biggest thing by not tearing myself down.
That's a really good one. I did a lot of the same stuff. You know, the one thing I guess I could say I can credit to my career, you know, I grew up roping in the 80s and professionally roping in the 90s. And so, like, you know, we watched I watched when it started, you know, from when Jake Barnes was consistently, aggressively consistent. You know, those guys never missed. Then Speedy showed up and then just annihilated everything that ever showed up. He was so fast. Then he learned how to get consistent with that speed. Then from there, you seen the Clay Tryon, which was like the mix between Speedy and Jake Barnes. And then the Drigger showed up. Then all the guys that started studying Speedy started showing up. Then so your Driggers, your Lightning Aguilera, you know, your Clay Smiths. You know, you watch all those guys getting faster and faster. Well, one of the things is my style, I was always having to tweak on it. You know, I
Mhm.
grew up in the old school days when it was right to left, your hand was down low, and then all of a sudden now guys have got their hand up higher because they're reaching further. So like what I had to start doing was my studying was my visuals was you know, always watching their runs, videoing and watching it, watching their runs, watching my runs. Well, then when the iPad started showing up, man, that's when it got a lot easier because I would video all of my runs and then I would video all them guys that were winning and I would video it from the same spot. So I
Mhm.
could see what their start was, where they left, where they rode to, when they brought their first swing, how they brought their first swing up. And then there's this app. Let me find this app here real quick. Um, I'll find it here in a little bit, but it used to be called the Technique app. No, now it's called OnForm. So what I can do is say, like, when I study Clay Smith, I would put my run and then I would put his run and I would put it in this app because you can
Mhm.
download camera.
Mhm.
And then say it was from the back of the box. So I could see when he left, when he brought his swing, and then I put my run right beside it. And then
Mhm.
I could see where my swing went and where. And then what was cool was you could overlap them. So you could watch the runs as you're over the top of each other, where my hand,
Yeah.
where his hand was, all those little things. Well, what's hard about that is then after a while, you can definitely get in your head. You
Yeah.
can definitely be trying to do too many things at once. And I went through that a lot through my career as well. Once it got to where I would watch my runs, I would keep it on this app. And when I would watch the runs, I would write it down in the notes underneath. All right, my start was good. My lane was good. I got my first swing up good. I would go over the things that I did good, but then it would be like, okay, when I roped, maybe I crossed too much and leaned and stepped my horse out. So on this next one, my start's good. When I brought my first swing up's good. Now when I rope, make sure I stand my horse up as I step out to where then I can post to steer up and have a good finish. You know, I would write down the things that were good because then that way I was like, I don't have to focus on that. I can go ahead and now the flaw that I made, just like you said, you need to make sure you're seeing your start, score, score, score. It's that one thing, that one little
Mhm.
remind, because if everything else is hitting, you don't have to think about all that. To me, the thinking comes when you're able to come back home at the end of the year, slow things back down and go over things each individual step, I think, and slow it down. Then you can slow down each step and go over each step. But man, if a guy's trying to go over every one of those steps at full speed at a rodeo, that's when you're way too far in your head. That's when I think
Yeah.
you're right. Got to be that one little thing and give yourself the confidence like, okay, this was good. This was good. Okay, this one little thing right here that I focus on this next one, when that shot shows up, be in the money. And I think that's a
Yeah.
good way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I've had I've had the same crisis every summer. It happens like in August when things slow down, where you're not going to a rodeo every single day and you kind of have a day or two driving in between rodeos. I kind of slow down during that time of year. And both years, you can ask Garrett, I have, like, freaked out and been like, "Oh, I need to change everything," and so I start trying to change, like, my whole style and change all of these huge things, but you can't do that when you're out there rodeoing, especially when you don't have a place to consistently practice. You just need to have confidence that it got you this far and it'll continue to get through the season, because the thing about rodeo is that there's always gonna be lows, like, you're never gonna be winning 100% of the time, and it's going to be your time, like, definitely it's always somebody's time, it rotates, but you just need to learn to be okay with the lows and still have confidence with yourself throughout the lows, and I think that's one of the biggest lessons that you can learn rodeoing.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things when you decide to do something else in your career, it's amazing how much you can learn by rodeoing for a living. You can
Mhm.
learn so much self-confidence, you can learn so much business, you can learn so much of what you can and can't tolerate. For me, it was like, it's amazing how many days in a row you can stay awake. You know what I mean? It's amazing how many times you can just eat trash and still live.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's amazing what you can put yourself through when you're out there. So a lot of those same things is when you apply that to business or anything or any line of work that you do, it's amazing how much a lot of this will carry over.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. It's funny that you say it's amazing how long you can find out you can stay awake, because I did discover, like, things that my body can do that is awesome. Like, I can drive, like, I can do an all-nighter no problem, and I can stay up the next day. But yeah, rodeo is it's so unique. It covers so many facets of life. Like, it covers your basic principles of, like, hard work, respect, accountability, discipline. But like you said, you can also transfer it into, business. There's just so many branches of rodeo that you can cover and so many career options. I mean, it's a lifestyle, like everybody
One of the
says.
things that I really learned about is because you're self-employed.
Mhm.
So you market yourself. So how well you run your social media is how well you can market yourself. You
Mhm.
learn how to get up in the mornings after a long night and maybe or not even sleeping. Well, work still needs to be done. We still need to ride the horses, we still need to feed the horses, we still need to practice. So you learn work ethic. And
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, now mentally, how can I prepare when I'm exhausted, I'm wrung out, I'm past a point of exhaustion? How can I now still bring it and still compete, especially when you're talking about the end of the year, August? That's when everyone's running on fumes, if not past fumes. You're burning
Yeah.
both candles from every end, from sleep to how you're not able to work out, how you're not able to eat very well, to you know your horse getting set, may not be sound, to the emotional stress, the physical stress, the mental stress. It's all of it. And
Yeah.
the people that can still perform through it, it's like, if I can do this, I can damn near do anything.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're in Texas or Oklahoma and need a top tier metal building, you need to call the guys at Cowboy Steel Construction. Founded by Trey Norris back in 2000, Cowboy Steel has grown into one of the premier metal building contractors in the region. Need an indoor arena? Or want to cover the one you've already got? These guys know how to get the job done right, strong, reliable, and built to last. Whether it's for ranch, business, or personal use, Cowboy Steel Construction has you covered, literally. Check out their work on social media at Cowboy Steel Construction on their Facebook and Instagram page, or call Trey Norris at 903-348-4611, and you can email them at cowboysteel2k@gmail.com.
At the end of the year this year, Garrett, my husband, he stopped rodeoing midway through the year and he went home. But when I was kind of in my slump and had slowed down towards the end of August, he flew out and helped me. And I didn't realize how exhausted I was before he flew out. Like, I'd been getting my 6, 7 hours of sleep every night. It wasn't exhaustion from driving to rodeos and pulling all-nighters or whatever. It was just, like, mental exhaustion of missing and going to the next rodeo and missing again, and at this point, I was driving, like, 8 hours between rodeos, and it's just, like, a different kind of exhaustion on your body too that you need to learn how to handle and learn how to perform too. But I also look back at it, and this is part of the reason why I love rodeo. Like, I love that feeling. Like, there's just something else about it where you can go perform when you're exhausted and still win. It's just like something that I don't wanna say I look forward to it, but it's like part of the game that I respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things too. Like there's a lot of times I would get 6 to 8 hours sleep, but it wasn't consistently.
Yeah.
It seems like you learned how to like get 3 or 4 hours, then be able to take a nap during the day,
Yeah.
then be ready for the perf, then drive for a little bit, then get 3 or 4 hours in the, between maybe 11 and 2 o'clock, then it's
Yeah.
your shift. So you learn how to sometimes get your sleep, but it wasn't ever consistent.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a civilian, me and Wyatt drove back the other day after the World Series. We got done roping like 8 o'clock. I drove till 5 in the morning and we got home at like, I don't know, 5 o'clock the next day.
Or
And I'm still trying to get caught up. I'm like, so far, I'm not even in shape. I'm like a civilian now. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't even make it out there rodeo in a month. It's amazing what you can get used to out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's different. It's a
I
different
just
time,
talked to
different
Tim
world, different.
Long. Yeah, it is. It's hard to explain for sure. I was just texting Tim Long, and they're at Cowtown, and he said it was completely sold out in one day.
One
The
day?
breakaway finals in Fort Worth.
Wow,
That's pretty
that's
cool.
awesome.
I said, well, I guess
Yeah.
I'll tell everyone to watch then. I think other tickets. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, talk about you and Gary got married this March? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, earlier in the year.
So how did y'all meet? Were y'all all out rattlesnake hunting one day, or how did y'all meet?
No, he grew up in New Mexico as well. We both high school rodeoed together, and we knew each other, all throughout junior high and high school, but didn't really talk. It's kind of funny, like, I choose to find beauty in the ashes situation, and one of the beauty in the ashes situation for my dad dying is that if my dad were alive, I probably would not have dated Garrett because I remember talking to him one time at Shawnee IFYR, and, when I went back in the trailer, my dad was like, "Were you talking to that Garrett Jacobs?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "I don't want you around him. He's a troublemaker." But, anyway, so he went to school in Weatherford, and, we started talking kind of when I was a senior in high school and he was in college and started dating after that, and, Garrett has always been, like, a big part in my life of I feel like I wouldn't have gotten where I am without him. If my dad would have been still alive, I really feel like I would have gone to college in New Mexico and not been exposed to this level of competition and been the competitor I am today, but, I went to school. Garrett and I went to school in Huntsville together first. He transferred to Huntsville his 3rd year of college, and that was my freshman year of college, and then both didn't like it, both ended up in Stephenville. Always rodeoed together, always had a lot of fun roping together and kind of talking through things together, and, Garrett is a person that I feel like has built my confidence up so much and, especially my confidence as a competitor, and always just been like a staple and someone I can talk to about my roping.
Y'all seem like two old souls together, and I mean that in a very complimentary way. It's cool to see, the match of how you two get along, and both coming from kind of the same places. But I think of Garrett as a man, and I say that in the fact of when I was his age, I was a boy. You know what I mean? Like I was a horrible boy. You know what I mean? Like as a young kid, like, or at a young age, like he is such an old soul to where like he just seems so beyond his years, and visiting with you and everything I've heard about you is the same. And so it's cool to see that match on how you guys are very similar.
Yeah, Garrett is I'm gonna brag on him for a little bit. He can really do anything. Like, he shoes my horses, and he does a great job shoeing. He built our barn, he built our arena, he can do anything. We just fixed our house last couple weeks ago. Our washer flooded our house, and he fixed the drywall, he fixed the floors, he can do anything. And, I kind of felt like he's built that confidence into me as well that makes me feel like I can do anything too. But yeah, we both are. I see what you're saying. I feel like we both are old souls where we kind of didn't have the usual childhood growing up, and so we just kind of like made a match of each other based off that as well.
I was listening to a preaching the other day by Mark Driscoll. I've enjoyed listening to him preach and stuff, and he was talking about how his wife is an extrovert and he's an introvert, and the topic was something related to me because he speaks so much and I do so many clinics. It's kind of the same thing. What he was talking about was when he come home, he would need solitude. He would talk about like, after being around so many people, him being an introvert, which is I'm an I wouldn't say extreme introvert, but I'm definitely an introvert. And he would talk about when he would get home, his solitude was found going to the mountains or going to the woods and being able to just go be alone and kind of recharge. And that was one of the things that I was like, man, that is definitely me, especially when you talk about when you get home from rodeo and just being able to get away from the glitz, get away from the announcers, even your competitors and stuff like that, just getting to where you can get that breath of fresh air and recharge. And he was talking about how a lot of times when you guys, go back home, would head out for the mountains and just go ride and just kind of go get away. And, you think about just how healthy that is to be able to have that where you can go get away from, even just cell phone service, you know,
Yeah.
just little things like that.
Yeah. I feel like Garrett and I have a deeper relationship too, where like we find peace, like we find our love in other things too. I'm gonna sound so ushy gushy saying all this, but like you said, we love to go like base somewhere out of rodeo. Like we love to go connect in the mountains, like love to go get away, love to go ride horses. We like to see like a pretty mule deer walking in the mountains, like just weird things like that. But like Garrett and I have goals together outside of rodeo, and rodeo is not our whole life. It's not my whole life. It's what I love to do, but it's not my whole life. Like we have an ultimate goal in life together that doesn't involve rodeo. Like we want to buy a ranch together. My family did sell the ranch, and that's like a huge part of hurt in my heart that I don't have that to go back home to. And so my goal in life isn't to win a gold buckle. That sounds bad. Like, yeah, I want to win a gold buckle, but my ultimate goal in life is like to build this life where I can, buy a ranch again and own land again. And I want to do that with Garrett, and I want to build that future with Garrett. And so I feel like we just find like so much grounding in things other than rodeo, which I feel like is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I know how well grounded he is biblically as well. And both of you. And so it's cool to see a young couple that has such a mature way of looking at things to where it's not the glitz and the glory. Cause, you talk about the false idols. Man, we've lost a lot of people to those false idols of when rodeo was done. They didn't know what to do with themselves. You've seen them
Yeah.
turn to drugs, you've seen them turn to alcohol, and then they lose their family, and it's the house built on sand. And the guy's not careful that when rodeo can definitely turn that way where you lose perspective of what really matters.
Yeah. You go to the same church as us. We both go to Lingleville Baptist, and we have a great pastor, Pastor Ryan, who's been on your podcast before. And I feel like a big part of our identity as a married couple is moving here and like having that connection and really learning a lot through Pastor Ryan to like convict ourselves and live a life of faith no matter what it looks like to other people, and to just be the light in the darkness. And um growing up, I didn't really go to church, lived kind of far away from church and made the excuse to not go to church because of that. But did like a lot of, vacation Bible study camps, and did the Camp Crossfire, which was like a huge vacation Bible study that a lot of rodeo kids went to in New Mexico and Texas. And I guess until I married Garrett and got kind of deep into our relationship, I never felt like how important faith is to building a life, if that makes sense. And so I'm thankful that Garrett has taken that step, going to Bible study with you guys, really taking a step into that faith. And he has led by faith in our marriage and in his life too. It's just like a whole nother chapter to life to think about.
Well, you both are definitely alike, and I think that's something people your age, a lot of the young kids looking up to both of you. One of the things that I remember somebody telling Trey Johnson was telling me was, and what you do with the platform you have, you may be the only Jesus some people ever see, and so to be able to learn how to be that light for people, it makes it where it's bigger than just sticking a calf in 1/6, but I think also too is when you do that, that does, I think that's where you're glorifying the talent that God gave you. And I think for both of you, it's been fun to watch how much of a light both of you are, and inspiring young girls that where it's not just about the winning, even though you're going to, but it's also about something deeper and more meaningful as well. And those are the things where I really feel where God's using both of you in a very bright light.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. Yeah, I mean, with rodeo, it is God given, and God gave me these talents and these abilities, and He continues to open doors for me to show me, that this is the path that He wants for me. But I really hope that by doing that, if maybe it's a fan that or a little girl that I talk to at a rodeo, I hope that they can see Christ in me and see that light in me, and that even if I like don't throw scripture at them or anything, that they can just see that light through me and it leads them to to Christ as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think your story, it really does, it's going to motivate a lot of young girls. And, because I think where some girls, and I know me growing up as well, a lot of boys, they always think that you need to be born into it. And it's not that at all. It seems
Yeah.
like very few people that are born into it. There's so many people. That's what's fun about the podcast is we get a chance to get to know everyone's story and how they grew up and how they became who they are. And most people grew up outside, even though grew up in a ranching community, but you were a long ways away from where a lot of the action was, long way away from even the store, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's not that a person has to be born into it. Passion has a lot to do with it, how you study and then how you put the work into it. That's a lot of what it takes to be able to be successful like you are. And so it's always good to hear people's story about how they made it to where they're one of the elite breakaway ropers in the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a long time ago in my life that it's hard to think about it and even think, exactly what I was thinking. But after my dad died, like, my dad was my only coach, and he was the only one that I got help from. Like, my mom, of course, she was there and she listened and, she knew all the principles, but it was just different. But when my dad died, I thought my life of roping and horses was over. I was like, who's going to help me when I miss my next calf? Like, who's going to help me train my next horse? But that my story, I feel like from my dad's death in rodeo to being where I am now, it just shows like that you can absolutely do it on your own, and there will be people that will come along and step in and help you, but I mean, you just have to rely on your faith and your hard work to get you through it, but I mean, you can do it.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking of bright lights, heading in there to Cowtown, man, it's going to be bright in there and it's going to be packed. So it's going to be pretty dang fun. You're not going to have a problem having any adrenaline, even though you guys are going to be driving in from Scottsdale. I guarantee when you back in there, the adrenaline will be there. You won't have to worry about that. But first off, how you getting ready? How you getting ready for Kimes? What horses are you taking? The weather's been great, so it looks like we'll be able to get some good practice in.
Yeah.
How have you been practicing? How have you been trying to get ready for these two big events right here at the end of the year?
Yeah, so like we were talking about earlier, a lot of my preparation has been building confidence and kind of fixing errors from the summer. And I got to jackpot when I came home, and jackpots just kind of helped build my confidence and show that I can still rope when I got home, still be doing this while I'm practicing. But kind of preparation wise, I don't set up a barrier. Don't set up the dimensions of the arena. I just really, the only thing different that I did was I set up a panel, because I have such a bad habit of when I bring my rope up, I bring it, like, straight to the side and hit the panel a lot of times, and so there's gonna be panels at both of those rodeos, and so kind of focused on like bringing my rope forward and waiting to leave with the stride of my horse. But other than that, I had some big calves. Like I had mentioned earlier in the podcast, the calves are probably going to be big at the NFBR. Bought some big calves and been practicing on them and just making sure my horses are feeling good. In my mind, it's just another rodeo. Both of them are just another rodeo.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to go into it. I know, like when Jackie first made it, when they first started having the breakaway, um, I set up the break. I set up the barrier for her because I was like, you're gonna want to feel the timing up because, like for us, it's a little bit different. I think for you, you're right. I think it's basically another rodeo. I don't think the measurements are probably going to be much different than what you guys are used to. For us, it was because it was 4 under. We're not used to anything much less than 2 under. So to
Yeah.
go 4 under was so much different than what we were used to throughout the year. The left wall was closer for us than anywhere else that we go throughout the year. So like the
Yeah.
dimensions, the speed, the left wall, everything was so different. So we would have to practice so much just to get a feel for it because it's so much different than anything that we ever did. But one thing that was great about it was like I remember one year when Jackie roped and we put up the barrier, we pushed calves, we did everything where we kind of get ready for it. Was when she got there, the feel felt the same. Where she was able to
Yeah.
find that go and that timing, of it was really I think kind of like for her that next level of like, oh, that's what it's kind of like when you put all that stuff up instead of just going and roping. But also in the same sense, then there's been times where she's missed the start, not gotten her go when we've done all that at home. And then she's like, Kelsey won the world and she didn't even put the dang barrier up. So there's always so many different ways to look at it and to win because I think one of the things is I think once you have the confidence and this is what we're going to do is taking that to where you go because everyone's going to do it differently. And I've seen some people rope so much they rope their way into a rut almost. And so it's hard to find that timing where, it's just the right amount. Your horses feel good. The roping feels good. And man, once the guy has that, that's what you're looking for. You want to peak just the right moment when you leave, it feels like. So when you get there,
Yeah.
like it just feels like you're ready to go.
Yeah, I aspire to be the competitor that Kelsey is because that girl can rope, but not give a crap about it. But, yeah, I feel like me as a competitor, if I set up the arena at my house, if I set up the box, it would be like I would fixate on it too much. I would fixate on it being perfect, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
as a competitor, I know that I don't need to be fixating on stuff. I went to what 65 different rodeos this year and they all had different setups and I was able to capitalize and be on the barrier at like all of these different setups. And so I feel like going into Kimes and the NFBR this year, I do have an advantage because I went last year. I got the feel, especially
Mhm.
for Kimes. We'll be going back to the same arena. I've roped at Northside so many times. Like I know the feel for both of those arenas. I know kind of what the production is gonna be, what the setup is gonna be, and so I have confidence in going back on that, but, like, I also know that I can rope in any setup, and I have my confidence in knowing that I'm gonna be on the barrier at the NFBR, like, I've practiced for this, I'm ready for this, you know?
And it's so exciting too, I think too, when because there's something about when, you go to the Kimes, like this is y'all's biggest rodeo. I mean, this
Yeah,
is the Super Bowl. This is something that adds almost the same amount as what they add at the NFR for all the rest of the competitors in the world. So, the adrenaline's gonna be there and there's so much too where it like the gamers and the winners, this is when they usually step up, and this is when you can almost get that confidence knowing that that's going to wake you up when you get there, no matter, whether a guy bobbles in the first round or what, you know, that next one, you've got a chance to win more money at this one than you can all year. And it's
yeah.
so fun to be in those type moments. Talk a little bit about how exciting that is to go to Kimes.
Yeah, I mean, you really cannot practice for the feeling that you're gonna get when you back into the first one at Kimes, but just competing there last year, it was such a first class event. Like everything down to, I mean, Chris setting up videos for us in the back to be able to watch it. And it was kind of similar to the NFR in the way that, like, you couldn't really, like, pile too many people in the arena. You couldn't be like watching from behind the box. Like, it was a first class professional event. You know, the crowds were there. The people were cheering for you when you rode out the back of the arena and got your rope from the strip and shoot. You rode right by all the people and they'd be like high fiving you, cheering you on, like encouraging words. So knowing that the Kimes was such a class production, going back in, I'm excited knowing that. And I'm taking, I think you had asked this earlier and I hadn't answered it, but I'm taking my good horse Whopper to the Kimes, the Bay Blaze Face horse that I ride all year. He's going to Kimes, and he probably won't go to the finals, just like with the risk of the virus. I'll probably separate him when I get back home and take my other two good ones, Yeller and Bebop, to the finals. But I've just been practicing on Whopper headed to the Kimes. Like, I just want to make sure that he's like true, he's not being cheaty, he's gonna give me that shot every time and not take it away from me. And just in preparation for the Kimes, like, I want to go in there and catch all 10 head. And I've been working on, you know, building my confidence to know that I can catch 10 head, but I also don't want to be taking a swing over everyone. Like, I want to give myself a shot at money on everyone. And so Kimes is just like such an exciting time. It feels like it's my NFR because there's so much money and so much up for grabs there that,
Mhm.
you know, it's the one that you want to be preparing for.
Yeah, yeah, that's the chance where you can go in there and win six figures. When a guy's talking
Yeah.
about trying to, advance what the dream, outside the arena looks like. Those are the places that are giving you girls the opportunity for it. And like I say, hats off
Yeah.
to Kimes, rescheduling their event, doing what was best for the horses. Also, not only that, just stepping in and,
Yeah.
giving you girls a chance to not be forgotten, because that's one of the things is just, it's hard for me to watch. And I love the fact that you guys at least have an NFR is great. It's still bitter in the fact that, like, you know, as a fan watching you girls all year long, but then at the NFR, it's like, no, you girls go over here. We're gonna go run our NFR. So, it's still hard as a fan to accept that because we know that you guys put in just as much work as everyone else that's there. And so, but I'm hoping the time comes. I'm still hopeful. But when we talk about your guys' NFR over there at Cowtown, that's a 2-day event. Is it gonna be run the same or you run 5 the first day and then 5 the second day?
Yes. 5 each day.
And
I'm kind of curious to see what kind of the setup is going to be though, like with the normal NFBR at South Point, like there's room back behind the boxes where you can tie all your horses in there. If you bring multiple horses, you can have your ropes spread out. Like, there's even room, you know, to trot your horse up and down if you want to trot him before you rope. But at Cowtown, they did remodel it where I think you can go back behind there and there is some holding room behind the boxes now, right? Or at least behind the head boxes
well, it'll just be for cattle. It'll just be for
for
cattle.
cattle. Okay.
Yeah, you'll be able to watch the start. The boxes will be the same as what you guys were used to at South Point. The boxes are longer. It's not up underneath the hood anymore, or under the stands.
Yeah.
You guys are out in the arena. But yeah, I think it'll just be where you guys are warming up out back. One thing about it, at least it'll just be 15 of you all, so it's not going to be too crowded back there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, I'll be curious to see how many they let in. I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll be able to go back there and watch, but I'll bet you'll have to probably run back and go get your horse and then come back in. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Like, where are they going to put, you know, the girls that are the second and third out from roping? Because there's not a whole lot of room back there like there is South Point. But
yeah,
some some things like that will be different, but definitely excited for the adrenaline,
I
like
am
you
too.
said.
Because the crowd's gonna be there. It's gonna be electrifying. When you go
Yeah.
to the last one, it's gonna be you'll feel it. And
Yeah.
that is one of the things that's probably the most intoxicating thing about rodeo, and that you can't get that nowhere else. You know what I mean? Like you can't you being able to blast one at home is fun, but when you hear the crowd roar, that's the one thing that's hard when a guy retires is you're not gonna get that again probably. And so
Yeah.
I'm so glad that y'all are gonna get that feel. And it's gonna be great. I'm excited for it. How fast is it gonna be? Is it gonna be ran with the same speed, or are they gonna slow down a little bit where you guys kind of catch your breath in between each round, or is it still probably gonna be run pretty fast paced?
I would assume that it's gonna be fast, if not faster. So during the normal NFBR in Vegas, they do have some acts. I think I think they had an act like between the 3rd and 4th round, and then the next day between like somewhere in the middle between the 7th and 8th rounds. But I'm wondering like if are they gonna get new acts for the stockyards? Are the old acts going? They gonna have any more? And so I guess I'm just curious to see like if all of the contracts were continued to be honored. We honestly still don't know a whole lot of details about it. Like we still don't have the info for the host hotel for our back number luncheon. We just barely got the time and the date to run cattle through, but I would assume it's probably going to be faster or just as fast as the
Yeah.
finals
Yeah,
is.
you think probably faster because it's not as big of an arena, so it'll be able to run
Yeah.
through. Calves are going to go out faster, and you think about what the logistics of being able to try to all of a sudden now you have been WPRA has been planning all year for the South Point, then all of a sudden now we got to find a new place. So I'm sure there's a lot of
Yeah.
still trying to get all the nuts and bolts figured out. But talk a little bit about how fast paced it is. We talked about that, but like talk about that. When you
Yeah.
go rope and then you got to find your calf, then you got to figure out what that calf is, then you got to figure out the order. Like I remember when Jackie was down there and it was just like this there, this there. I mean, it was
Wild.
a rat race down there, sound like.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was not prepared for last year was how fast it was, and, kind of like you don't get to gather up between runs, it is that fast. So you pretty much like they run around and they run into the next round, so you barely have time to like get a new rope out or even, lope your horse if you're switching horses. But in preparation for that, I just for this year, I really want to make sure that I'm not dwelling on the last run. Last year I didn't have a great finals. I think I placed in 2 rounds and that was only the first day. And I really feel like the second day I was just like dwelling on the last run so much. And this year I need to focus on you have another in 10 minutes, like just move on and get ready for that next run. They do have the draw posted down there where, well, I don't know where it will be at Cowtown, probably at the back of the arena. But at South Point, it was back there, like in Holden Pin, where you could see it. All the girls were there. They had their phones with their rope bags. You could see their videos if you wanted to. Or I want to say that they had like drawn the first 3 rounds or the first 2 rounds, and then they kept drawing throughout. Do you remember
That
that?
was different, I think, when it first started. I think they draw it every round. So
Okay.
it was I think now they do. I think they draw ahead of time now where I think you can at least kind of like already know going into the first round, second round, third round, kind of which ones you have. And then I think that
Yeah.
break is in between probably your third and fourth round when they probably redraw. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's
When
where
they have
some of
the
the
act.
acts have kind of implemented because I think before they just went right on into it and you're trying to figure out, okay,
Yeah.
from third, fourth round, who ran the one in the first round and then trying to figure out where the video and then all of a sudden they're calling your name. It was just,
Yeah.
I think they
And
slow it
then
down with the acts now a little bit where you can somewhat kind of get a game plan figured on what calf you have.
yeah. Another thing that kind of sinks too that I wish that uh there would be an opportunity to maybe change in the future if it doesn't get moved into the Thomas and Mack is that you can't bring your own helpers. Like you can only have the girls, the other top 14 girls, they are the only people that can stand in the box with you. And I think that they can get the calf's head if they like to, but other than that, they have a designated pusher and a designated head man. And I don't know, it would just be nice if you could have outside people. If it's not going to be in the Thomas and Mack, at least have someone that's able to be on your other horse and help you in the box if you like. I'm sure that Shelby would love to have Haven stand in the box with her. I would love to have Garrett stand in the box with me
Yeah.
and smooth the box for me. But on the other side of that, I feel like women kind of get a bad rap on all just being catty and being mean to each other and hating each other. But the top 15 group of girls, like, we all get along just fine. Like, there's like, nobody's spiteful, nobody's mean to each other. Like, we all do really cheer each other on, too.
Good. That's good. Well, I'm excited to go out there. I know Jackie and I, we've got tickets and we're going to come root you guys on. So, man, I'm excited. Like I said, I think going where you're celebrated, not tolerated. I love Kid Rock saying right there because I know Texas is going to support it. So the fact that it sold out in one day, that's pretty special. I'm excited about that. So,
Yeah.
I know you guys are going to do great, and man, I appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on and enjoy hearing your story and getting to know more about you. But Really going to be rooting you on out there. And I talked to Garrett too. So if he needs help driving out there, I said, man, I'm headed out there myself. So I can definitely help drive as well. But I feel like both of us are rodeoing again. But yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's going to be a big end of the year. So, man, rooting for you. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and do good out there.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. This was great.
You bet. You bet. All right. You guys travel safe too. God bless you guys.
All right. All right. Thanks, Charlie. See you out there.
You got it.